Hello, hello, my lovely, lovely renovators. How are you today? It's Tash here, and welcome back to the How to Renovate podcast. Okay, today, everybody, I have got an episode for you that is one of the most powerful phrases you can carry with you through any renovation, and it is never assume anything. Okay, so I've been burned by this one many times before, but I've been burned, so you don't have to. So that's why I spend my time completely for free so that I can warn you and you won't have to be burned the same way I have. So let's get into the episode, everybody. I know it sounds dramatic, but honestly, this one phrase could save you a lot of time, money, and stress. Because when you assume anything during a renovation, the renovation gods will laugh. Oh, how they will laugh. So, in today's episode, let's look at where assumptions can creep in and why they can trip us up. Let's get into it, guys. Okay, number one, everybody. Let's start at the beginning. Let's look at assumptions you may make of your current home. So, just a really quick run through here. So, never assume that anything in your property is straight. Nothing's ever straight. And I have found this out the hard way. The walls are never straight, the floors are never level. So you have to be aware that nothing is going to be perfectly straight. And sometimes that can have a knock-on effect for the works you're about to carry out. Sometimes things need additional work, which of course means additional cost as well. So yes, you can't just assume that every renovation is going to be straightforward. Let's say with an extension, just say, oh, we're just putting a box on the end and everything's going to work out fine. Sometimes it does, but a lot of times it doesn't. So just be aware that when you're in your property, just be aware that you can't always assume that everything is great there. Things may come up that may affect your renovation. Same thing with ceiling heights. Quite often the ceiling heights aren't the same throughout the property, or perhaps you're assuming your electrics are in good condition, or you can reuse your kitchen cabinets or something like that. I think it's just always safe to see it as a bonus that you can do those things. So you can never just quite assume that these things will all work out. Okay, so now moving on to number two. So when you're planning a renovation and when you're in the midst of a renovation, double checking is a renovation superpower. So when I'm talking about never assuming anything, this is really what I mean. Whether it's double checking measurements or double checking with your builder or asking lots of questions over and over again. Never assume anything. So always double check everything. Make sure that even if you've measured something 3 times before, measure it again just before you order it, or measure it again just before you tell your builder. Because there are so many things that you need to be on top of during a renovation. It's easy and it's human to make mistakes. Because when you have so many things thrown at you on top of the usual life that you're living, whether that's your job, your family, whatever else is going on in your life, and you've got to have the pressure to get all of this right as well, it can be a lot. So take the time to double check everything and always confirm with your builder that they've understood. Because I find sometimes even if something seems clear to you and you don't double check it with them and they can't say it back to you what they think you mean, you might just go on site and see that something completely different has been done. That has happened to me a number of times. I would give an instruction thinking it cannot be clearer than that, and then going on site and seeing something completely different. And when you think about it and you look at what's been done, it's possible that the miscommunication could have been there. So always make sure that you and your builder are on the same page when you're communicating. It's really not about being paranoid and overbearing on site. You know, you want to avoid mistakes, you want to avoid redos, because all of those cost you money, and also they cause friction and they can also cause disputes. So clear communication and double checking is one of the most important things when you're working on site with your team. So ask lots of questions, even if you think they're silly questions. Ask lots of questions and just confirm that your understandings match. And this even comes down to choosing your materials. So I always say, make sure you get your real samples in your hand so that you can test them and you can see what they look like with everything else that you're putting in your space. Because you could see something online, for example, and not double check it, just order it. And you might have a truckload of something arrive, flooring or tiles. And if you haven't seen it before and it's not what you imagined when it turns up, that is a big deal. That is a big deal to be able to send that back. It's going to cost you a lot of money, or you might have to compromise and use it anyway, even though you're not happy with it, if you're not in a position to return it all. So really, really double check everything. That is your superpower when it comes to renovating, and especially when it comes to that point where you're speaking to your professionals, you're speaking to your architect, you're speaking to your contractor, and things are happening on site. Those are the most important times where you need to double check everything. And I would say that applies almost throughout your entire process, throughout the entire 5 pillars, because from planning stage, you have to make sure that your measurements are correct. Right at the planning, right at the layout, that what's going to be built is actually going to work. And then you need to check with your architect, and you've got to make sure that the architect knows that what you want will actually be translated through to your architect's drawings. So this really goes through the entire project. Always double check with all your professionals. Every single thing can have a major impact on your project. So you must take the time to plan and to double check. Okay, moving on to number 3, communication. Now, communication during a renovation is really, really important. So one of the biggest assumption traps is communication. And this kind of goes back to my previous point, is you think you've explained something really well. To you, it makes sense. Your contractor nods, yes, they understand, but they are picturing something else completely different. So this is really, again, where your planning comes in. If you've got your floor plans, if you've got your style boards, if you have your samples, you can show them and you can make notes on the actual thing. I actually write onto the items. I'll say, this is the tile for the kitchen. So they have it there. They can measure the width if they need to for levels. So show them things, don't just explain. Show them photos, show them drawings, show them the materials. Be really, really specific about what you're asking them to do, because anything can be misinterpreted. You could say, I want a shelf there. It could be, do you want a flush shelf? Do you want a floating shelf? Do you want a shelf with a ledge? You know, like just the word shelf can be interpreted by a builder in so many different ways. So you really need to take it to the next level with explaining, with photographs, drawings, sketches, measurements. Make sure that they repeat it back in their own words, because you know, you have to, if it matters, you have to document it. What I do on all my projects, I have a single point of communication with the architect and the contractor. It's usually a WhatsApp group, and everything that is discussed on site is then afterwards put onto that WhatsApp group in writing and also in pictures. So I will write out exactly what was discussed, but then I will follow up with an image or a drawing or a measurement or a link to reiterate what we just discussed. Because there are so many things that can be misinterpreted on a site, and especially if you haven't planned properly and you haven't got every single detail laid out in your planning. I mean, things like the tile layout and the direction, horizontal versus vertical, the grout color, the switch plate finishes, the door handle heights, the door handle styles, the door handle finish, the skirting profile, the paint finish, whether you want matte or you want sheen. These things, if you're not having your regular site meetings, these things can quickly pile up and be done wrong. And really, your builder should be checking in with you. But sometimes they don't. And you have to be on top of it yourself. You have to know what you want. You have to have it planned out. And you have to be able to communicate that really, really clearly with your team. And that is the way to get what you want, to get a successful renovation. And without those headaches of having things done wrong, having to redo them, having to rebuy things, having to pay for adjustments to be made. So that brings us to the end of this episode, everybody. And I would just say, even if you take one thing away from this episode today, Let it be the title. Never assume anything. Ask, measure, check, clarify, and never feel silly for confirming what might seem obvious. Because most renovation stress comes from not what we don't know, but what we thought we knew, or what your contractor thought he knew. So don't feel silly that you're checking. Never assume anything. Ask lots of questions, and remember your superpower of double checking everything. That's it for this week, everybody, and I hope you found this episode useful. Give us a little share and a like if you found it useful. Maybe someone else is renovating and you'd like to share this episode with them. We'd really appreciate that. Thank you so much, and I will see you in the next episode. It's bye for now. For more information on my 5-pillar process for successful renovation, you can go directly to southplacestudio.com/pillars, where you'll find an introduction to the process which covers each of the pillars and what they cover. We also have a number of other free renovation resources. Go now to southplacestudio.com/freebies. I have created some amazing freebies for you there. There is one on the process, like we just said. There is one on planning permission. There is one on kitchen design. There is another one on lighting planning. Go and check those out. There's so much free information there to help you with your renovation.